The knock on my apartment door comes late, a flat, percussive sound that slices through the exhausted quiet of my post-shift haze. It's too late for anything good, too late for a courier, too late for a neighbor needing a cup of sugar. In this part of Boston, a knock after midnight is a herald of trouble, a summons you don't want to answer. I, Jenna Carter, am still in my faded blue scrubs, the faint, sterile scent of the hospital clinging to me like a second skin. My body aches with a familiar weariness, a bone-deep fatigue that comes from 12 hours of being on my feet, of dealing with life and death in equal draining measure. My son, Leo, just 7 years old and all sharp angles and boundless curiosity, peeks through the cracked hallway door of his bedroom, his blonde hair a messy halo under the dim light. His eyes, wide and blue like his father's were, are fixed on the front door. I put a finger to my lips, a silent command for him to stay put, to stay quiet. My heart begins a low, anxious drumbeat against my ribs. We don't get visitors. Ever. I creep towards the door, my worn socks whispering against the linoleum. The peephole is cloudy, scratched from years of use by previous tenants. But through the distorted lens, I can make out a shape. A man. He's not standing at the door, but leaning heavily against the grimy stairwell wall opposite, his form slumped, one arm braced against the peeling paint. Even through the fisheye distortion, I can see the dark stain blooming across the front of his crisp white shirt. It's not wine, it's not shadow, it's blood. A cold dread, slick and immediate, washes over me. This is what I've always feared, living on the frayed edges of the city. Random violence spilling over, finding its way to my doorstep. My instinct, honed by years of self-preservation as a single mother, screams at me, lock the deadbolt, call 911, don't make a sound. But before I can move, before I can even breathe, Leo slips past me. He's quiet as a mouse, a skill he's perfected in our small, thin-walled apartment. The hallway door creaks open just a few inches, the chain lock the only thing separating us from the danger outside. "Are you okay, mister?" Leo's voice is small but clear, filled with an uncorrupted innocence that I both cherish and fear. The man outside jolts, his head lifting slowly. His face is pale, drawn with pain, but his eyes are shockingly sharp, dark, and intense as they lock onto my son. He tries to push himself upright, a low groan escaping his lips. He's losing his fight to stay on his feet. "Don't be scared, mister," Leo says again, his voice gentle, unafraid. He pushes the door a little further, straining against the chain. "My mom is a nurse. She can fix you." My blood turns to ice. "Leo, get back here, now." My whisper is harsh, frantic, but the wounded stranger's gaze has shifted from my son to me. His eyes find mine through the narrow gap, and in that instant, a jolt of recognition, cold and terrifying, shoots through me. It's him. I've seen that face in newspapers, in hushed news reports on the television at the hospital break room. The chiseled jaw, the severe black hair, the eyes that seem to hold the city's darkest secrets. Antonio Belucci. The name itself is a whisper of fear and power in Boston, synonymous with organized crime, with a kind of brutal control that operates in the shadows of the legitimate world. He is the head of the Belucci family, the Mafia boss. My heart doesn't just drop, it plummets. This isn't random violence. This is something else entirely, something 1,000 times more dangerous. Every rational thought in my head screams to slam the door, to barricade it with the flimsy furniture I own, to grab Leo and hide in the closet until morning. But he's looking at me, and there's a flicker of something in his gaze beyond pain, desperation, and then his eyes drift back to Leo, who is still standing by the door, a small, brave sentinel. Belucci's expression softens for a fraction of a second, a barely perceptible shift in the hard lines of his face. Then, his body gives out. He slumps, his back sliding down the wall, leaving a smear of red. He's going to bleed out in my hallway. My training kicks in, a relentless automatic response overriding my fear. Assess the patient, stop the bleeding, stabilize. It's a mantra drilled into me over years of chaotic emergency room shifts. But this isn't the ER. This is my home. This is my son's home. Leo, go to your room and close the door, I say, my voice trembling but firm. He looks from the man to me, his lower lip jutting out. But Mommy, he's hurt. I know, sweetie. I'll help him. But I need you to go to your room. Please. He hesitates, then nods, scampering back to his room and clicking the door shut. The sound echoes in the sudden silence. It's just me and the devil in the hallway. My hand shakes as I slide the chain lock free. The door swings open, and the coppery smell of blood fills my small apartment, thick and cloying. I help him inside. It's a struggle. He's heavy, all dense muscle and dead weight, and he leans on me with a startling intimacy. His breath is shallow, hot against my neck. I half drag, half carry him to the worn floral sofa that came with the apartment, easing him down onto the cushions. The fabric immediately darkens where he lies. So much for my security deposit. I grab my emergency medical kit from the bathroom, the one I keep for neighborhood scrapes and Leo's inevitable tumbles. It feels laughably inadequate for this. My hands, usually so steady, are shaking as I cut away the fabric of his expensive shirt. The wound is on his side, a ragged tear in the flesh just below his ribs. It's deep. A gunshot wound. My stomach clenches. You need a hospital, I say, my voice clinical, detached. It's the only way I can function. No hospitals, he rasps, his voice a low growl of gravel and pain. His hand shoots out, grabbing my wrist. His grip is surprisingly strong, a manacle of flesh and bone. No police. His dark eyes bore into mine, and it's not a request. It's an order, a command from a man who is used to being obeyed without question, even when he's bleeding out on a stranger's couch. I swallow hard, the fear a bitter taste in my mouth. I am a nurse. I have a duty of care. But I am also a mother. And letting this man, this world of violence, into my home might be the biggest mistake of my life. But it's too late. He's already here. I pull my wrist free from his grasp, my touch more firm than I feel. Lie still. If you want my help, you do exactly as I say. For a moment, I think he's going to argue. A flicker of defiance, of pure, undiluted authority, crosses his face. But then it's gone, replaced by a grim acceptance. He nods, just once, and lets his head fall back against the cushions. I work quickly, my training taking over completely. I clean the wound, my fingers probing gently to assess the damage. It looks like the bullet went clean through. Lucky for him. Unlucky for me. A through and through means he'll probably live. And if he lives, he'll remember the nurse who saved him. As I prepare the suture kit, I can feel his eyes on me, an unnerving, constant pressure. He's not just watching me work. He's studying me. He's taking in my shabby apartment, the stack of unpaid bills on the small kitchen table, the crayon drawing of a superhero taped to the refrigerator. He's cataloging every detail of my life, absorbing it, possessing it with his gaze. I start stitching. The needle dips in and out of his skin, my movements precise and economical. The only sounds in the room are the soft pop of the thread pulling through flesh, his ragged breathing, and the frantic thumping of my own heart. The air is thick with a strange, terrifying intimacy. I am literally holding this dangerous man's life together with a needle and thread. "What's your name?" he asks, his voice stronger now. "You don't need to know that," I reply, not looking up from my work. A low chuckle rumbles in his chest, a sound that is both painful and menacing. "I think I do." I tie off the last stitch, my hands covered in his blood. Jenna. The name escapes my lips before I can stop it. A concession. A mistake. "Jenna," he repeats, tasting the name, making it his. "And the boy?" "Leo." My voice is sharp, protective. "You'll stay away from him." He doesn't answer. He just continues to watch me with those dark, unreadable eyes. I bandage the wound tightly, my work done. I've saved him. I've stopped the bleeding. Now he needs to leave. He needs to vanish from my life as quickly as he appeared. But as I stand up, pulling off the stained latex gloves, I look at him, truly look at him, and I know it's not that simple. Antonio Belucci is not the kind of man who just walks away. He's a spider, and I've just stumbled into his web. The way he's watching me now, with an intensity that goes beyond gratitude, tells me something terrifying. Saving his life hasn't earned me a simple thank you. It's created a debt, a connection. And in his world, debts are paid, and connections are never, ever broken. My life, the small, quiet, struggling life I had built for myself and my son, is over. It ended the moment Leo opened that door. And I have a horrifying feeling that my new life, a life inexorably tangled with the man bleeding on my sofa, is just beginning. He doesn't leave that night. Of course he doesn't. After I finish bandaging him, he pulls a sleek black phone from his pocket, his movements slow and deliberate. He makes a single call, his conversation clipped and coded, a series of low-spoken commands. Less than 15 minutes later, there's another knock on the door. This one is different, softer, more respectful. My entire body tenses. I look at Belucci, a question in my eyes. He gives a slight nod, an almost imperceptible gesture of permission. I feel a surge of resentment. Permission to answer my own door? I open it to find a man who is Belucci's opposite in every way. Where Belucci is dark and imposing, this man is fair-haired and wiry, his face etched with a nervous energy. He wears a suit that's just as expensive, but he doesn't fill it with the same effortless authority. His eyes dart around my apartment, taking in the scene. His boss on my couch, the blood-stained supplies on the coffee table, me standing there in my scrubs, looking like a ghost. "Boss," the man says, his voice hushed. He introduces himself as Marco. He's Belucci's right hand, his driver, his shadow. He looks at me with a mixture of suspicion and awe. "Get a cleanup crew here, quietly," Belucci commands from the sofa, "and find out who talked. I want a name by sunrise." "And them?" Marco asks, gesturing towards me with a flick of his head. A cold silence hangs in the air. I hold my breath. Them. He's talking about me and Leo. We're loose ends, witnesses, the only two people outside his organization who know he was shot, that he was vulnerable. In his world, witnesses disappear. Belucci's eyes find mine again. That intense, possessive gaze pins me in place. "They're with me," he says, and the words are a verdict, a life sentence. He doesn't say it to reassure me. He says it to inform Marco. It's a statement of fact, a declaration of ownership. And just like that, my apartment is no longer my own. Marco brings in bags from a waiting car, fresh clothes for Belucci, a burner phone for me, which he places on my kitchen counter with a quiet finality. "He'll call you on this," Marco says, not unkindly. "Keep it on you at all times." Then the cleanup crew arrives. Two silent, efficient men who move with an eerie lack of presence. They don't just clean the blood from the sofa and the floor. They replace the sofa entirely. A brand new, sterile-looking leather couch is brought in, and my old, worn one is spirited away into the night. They patch the hole in the hallway wall and repaint it, erasing any sign that a man nearly died there. By the time they're gone, my apartment is cleaner than it's been in years, yet it feels profoundly violated, tainted by a sterile efficiency that screams of covering up crimes. Belucci spends the night on the new sofa, refusing any offer of my bed. I don't sleep. I sit in the rickety chair in my kitchen, clutching a cold mug of tea, listening to the sound of his breathing, to the occasional rustle as he shifts his weight. I am a prisoner in my own home. The next morning, Leo emerges from his room, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. He stops short when he sees Belucci, a dark, imposing figure in a fresh black shirt, sitting at our small kitchen table. My heart leaps into my throat. "Good morning, Leo," Belucci says, his voice a low, calm rumble. It's the first time I've heard him speak without the rasp of pain. Leo, never shy, walks right up to him. "Did my mommy fix you?" "She did," Belucci says, his eyes flicking to me. "She's very good at her job." A strange, almost paternal gentleness enters his expression as he looks at my son. It's so at odds with the man's reputation, with the cold command I've seen, that it throws me completely off balance. He asks Leo about school, about his favorite superhero, the one from the drawing on the fridge. He listens, truly listens, with an attentiveness that few adults ever give a child. It's terrifyingly disarming. He's not just taking over my life, he's charming my son. Later that day, the ultimatum comes. He sits me down at the table, a cup of coffee he made himself in front of me. It's dark and strong, just how he seems to think I'd like it. He's right. The men who did this to me are part of a rival faction within my own family, he explains, his voice devoid of emotion. They're trying to take over. They know I was hit. They don't know I survived. But they'll be looking for anyone who might have helped me. They'll be looking for loose ends. He lets the words hang in the air. Loose ends. Me and Leo again. You and the boy are not safe here anymore, he continues. Your presence has been noted. A car like mine, seen on this street at this hour. It draws attention. They'll find you. So, what are you suggesting? I ask, my voice barely a whisper. That we just leave? I'm not suggesting anything, he says, and the cold authority is back. I'm telling you, you're moving, today. You'll pack a bag with whatever you and Leo need for a few weeks. The rest will be taken care of. Moved where? I have a job. Leo has school. I can't just disappear. My panic is rising, a frantic bird beating its wings against my ribs. Your job has been handled. You're on an indefinite leave of absence for a family emergency, he says calmly. Leo's school has been informed he's transferring. Everything has been taken care of. The sheer audacity of it, the absolute control he has exerted over my life without my knowledge or consent, leaves me breathless. He didn't ask. He just did it. He has reached into my life and rearranged all the pieces to his liking. You can't do this, I say, my voice shaking with a mixture of fear and rage. I can, he replies, his gaze unwavering. And I have. This is not a negotiation, Jenna. This is for your protection. It's the only way to ensure what happened to me doesn't happen to you, or to him. He glances towards Leo's closed bedroom door. The threat is unspoken, but crystal clear. My defiance could put my son in danger. He has me trapped, and he knows it. He has sealed every exit, anticipated every argument. My only choice is to comply. So I pack. I move through my small apartment like a ghost, collecting clothes for myself and Leo, his favorite stuffed dinosaur, the worn copy of the Velveteen Rabbit I read to him every night. Each object I touch feels like a relic from a life that is already gone. I am packing for a trip from which I might never return. When we leave, it's under the cover of dusk. Marco is waiting downstairs in a Blacktown car with tinted windows so dark they look like polished obsidian. My neighbors don't see us go. We slip out of the building and into the car, disappearing into the city's bloodstream. As the car pulls away, I look back at the tenement building, at the lighted window of the apartment that has been my sanctuary, my struggle, my home. It looks small and insignificant now, a place I no longer belong. The drive is long and silent. We leave the gritty, familiar streets of my neighborhood behind, moving through progressively wealthier areas until we're in the heart of the city, surrounded by glittering towers of glass and steel. The car descends into a private underground garage, the gate closing behind us with a heavy, final thud. We take a private elevator that opens directly into a penthouse apartment. The doors slide open, and I gasp. The space is vast, a cavern of minimalist design and breathtaking luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrap around the entire living area, offering a panoramic, godlike view of the Boston skyline. The furniture is all sharp lines and muted colors, black leather, chrome, dark wood. It's beautiful, expensive, and utterly devoid of warmth or personality. It's a fortress, not a home. This will be your home for now, Belucci says, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. Leo, for his part, is mesmerized. He runs to the window, pressing his hands against the cool glass. "Mommy, look. The cars are like little bugs." Belucci watches him, a faint smile touching his lips. "There are 2 bedrooms down the hall. The one on the left is for you and Leo. The kitchen is fully stocked. Anything you need, you tell Marco." He turns to leave, heading towards a spiral staircase that I assume leads to his private quarters. "Wait," I call out, my voice small in the huge room. "For how long?" He stops, his back to me. He doesn't turn around when he answers, his voice carrying a chilling finality. "For as long as it takes." The first few days in the penthouse are a study in surreal tension. I feel like a ghost haunting someone else's life. The silence is the most unnerving part. My old apartment was a symphony of city sounds, sirens, arguing neighbors, the rumble of the elevated train. Here, dozens of stories above the street, there is only a profound, insulated quiet. It's the silence of a tomb, a gilded cage suspended in the sky. I try to create a routine, a semblance of normalcy for Leo. We do school lessons at the massive dining room table, his colorful worksheets a small island of chaos in the sea of sterile order. We build forts out of expensive sofa cushions and watch cartoons on a television the size of a movie screen. I cook in the state-of-the-art kitchen, which is stocked with every gourmet ingredient imaginable, a stark contrast to my usual budget-conscious meals of pasta and rice. It feels like playing house in a museum. Antonio, he told me to call him Antonio, a move towards a familiarity I'm not ready for, is a constant, brooding presence. He spends most of his time in his office upstairs, a room I have not been invited to enter. But I feel his awareness of us at all times. Sometimes I'll look up from playing with Leo and find him standing in the archway, just watching. His expression is always unreadable, a mask of cool neutrality, but his gaze is heavy, possessive. He joins us for dinner every evening. These meals are excruciatingly tense affairs. I try to fill the silence with chatter about Leo's day, but the conversation always feels stilted, artificial. Antonio speaks little, but when he does, his questions are precise, probing. He asks about my nursing career, my training, my life before Leo. He's not making small talk, he's gathering intelligence, filing away the details of my existence. One evening, about a week after our arrival, Leo is showing Antonio the Lego castle he's built. He's explaining the intricate defense systems, the secret passages, the dragon guarding the gate. Antonio is on the floor with him, his large frame folded awkwardly on the plush white rug, listening with that same unnerving intensity. "And this is the king," Leo says, holding up a small Lego figure. "He's very powerful, and he protects everyone in the castle." "Does he?" Antonio asks, his voice a low rumble. He picks up a different Lego figure, a knight in black armor. "Sometimes, the biggest threats don't come from outside the walls. Sometimes, they come from within." He glances up at me, his dark eyes holding a meaning that has nothing to do with plastic toys. A chill runs down my spine. He's talking about his own life, about the betrayal that led him to my door. The first crack in my carefully constructed emotional wall comes unexpectedly. My old landlord, a greasy, opportunistic man named Mr. Henderson, somehow gets the number for the burner phone. He leaves a string of increasingly nasty voicemails, threatening to sue me for breaking the lease, to ruin my credit, to keep my security deposit. It's a small, mundane problem from my old life, but in this new, high-stakes world, it feels like a tether to a reality I can't quite let go of. I'm listening to one of the messages, my stomach twisting in knots, when Antonio walks into the room. I quickly hang up, but he's already seen the distress on my face. "What is it?" he demands. "Nothing. It's just my old landlord." He holds out his hand. "Give me the phone." I hesitate, then hand it over. He listens to the voicemails, his jaw tightening with each threat. When the last one finishes, he deletes them all and then dials a number from memory. "Marco," he says, his voice deceptively calm. "I have a name for you. Henderson. He owns a tenement on Clark Street. I want you to buy the building, and then I want you to evict him. Find a reason. I don't care what it is. And tell him if he ever contacts Jenna again, you'll be buying his kneecaps next." He hangs up and hands the phone back to me. I'm stunned into silence. The casual, absolute brutality of it is shocking. He didn't just solve my problem, he obliterated it. He wielded his power like a weapon, swift and merciless, all for a minor annoyance. "You didn't have to do that," I whisper, my voice hoarse. "He was threatening you," he says, as if it's the simplest, most obvious thing in the world. No one threatens what's mine. There it is again. That word. Mine. I am his possession, his responsibility, his to protect. A part of me is terrified by the implication, by the possessiveness that borders on obsession. But another, smaller, more treacherous part of me feels a flicker of something else, a sense of safety. For the first time in years, I don't have to fight my battles alone. The feeling is as intoxicating as it is dangerous. The equilibrium of our strange cohabitation is shattered by the arrival of a woman named Isabella. She appears one afternoon, using her own key to enter the penthouse, her presence announced by the sharp click of stiletto heels on the marble floor. She is tall, impossibly elegant, and stunningly beautiful, with raven hair and eyes the color of emeralds. She surveys the scene, me in jeans and a t-shirt, Leo's toys scattered on the rug, with a look of undisguised contempt. "Antonio," she says, her voice a sultry purr, ignoring me completely. "I came as soon as I heard you were indisposed. I was worried." Antonio emerges from his office, his face a thundercloud. "Isabella, what are you doing here?" "Checking on you, of course," she says, gliding towards him. She runs a perfectly manicured hand down his arm. "And who is this?" Her eyes, cold and sharp, land on me. "The new maid?" "This is Jenna," Antonio says, his voice hard as steel. He gently but firmly removes her hand from his arm. "She's a guest. And this is her son, Leo." Isabella's perfectly sculpted eyebrows rise. "A guest? With a child? Antonio, darling, have you lost your mind? This is not a daycare." She looks at Leo with a distaste that makes my blood boil. I feel a surge of protective fury. I step forward, placing myself slightly in front of Leo. "We were just about to go to his room for a nap," I say, my voice steady despite the anger churning inside me. "A wise decision," Isabella says with a dismissive wave of her hand. I take Leo's hand and lead him down the hall, my back rigid. I can feel her eyes on me, judging, dismissing. When I close Leo's bedroom door behind me, I lean against it, my heart pounding. She's not just a rival. She's a representative of his world, a world of cold beauty and casual cruelty, a world I will never belong in. I can hear their muffled voices from the living room, sharp and angry. I can't make out the words, but the tone is clear. They are arguing. After what feels like an eternity, I hear the front door slam shut. When I emerge from the bedroom, Antonio is standing by the window, staring out at the city. His fists are clenched at his sides. "I apologize for that," he says, without turning around. "Isabella is a business associate. She overstepped." "She seems like more than a business associate," I say, unable to keep the edge from my voice. He finally turns to face me. "She was. A long time ago. It's over." His gaze is intense, searching. "She has no place here. You do." The words hang between us, heavy with unspoken meaning. He's drawing a line in the sand, separating me from the rest of his life, from women like Isabella. He's placing me in a different category, a protected one. But the cage, no matter how gilded, is still a cage. And I'm starting to wonder if the door will ever open again. That night, a storm rolls in over the city. It's a violent, spectacular display, with sheets of rain lashing against the floor-to-ceiling windows and thunder rattling the very foundations of the building. Leo, who has always been afraid of storms, is fast asleep, exhausted from the day's drama. I, however, am wide awake, my nerves frayed. I'm in the kitchen, making a cup of chamomile tea, when the lights flicker and die. The entire penthouse is plunged into an inky blackness, the only light coming from the frantic, strobing flashes of lightning outside, which momentarily illuminate the room in stark, ghostly detail. The emergency generator should have kicked in. It hasn't. My breath catches in my throat. It's not just a power outage. It's a security failure. In the next flash of lightning, I see him. Antonio is standing in the middle of the room, a dark silhouette against the raging storm. In his hand is a gun, held with a familiarity that makes my stomach clench. "Stay here," he says, his voice a low, urgent command. "And stay quiet." He moves through the apartment with a silent, predatory grace, checking every window, every door. He's not just a man anymore. He's a warrior in his element, his senses heightened by the darkness and the danger. I'm frozen in place, my fear a cold, hard knot in my chest. The storm outside is nothing compared to the one I feel brewing in this room. He comes back to the kitchen, his posture still tense. The main power line to the building was cut. The generator was disabled. "Who?" I whisper. "Ricardo," he says, the name a curse on his lips. Ricardo, the rival cousin, the one who shot him. He knows where I am. He's making a move. My mind races. We're trapped. Dozens of floors up, in a glass box, with no power and a killer on the way. My first thought is of Leo, asleep and vulnerable in his bed. "We have to get out of here," I say, my voice shaking. We can't. The elevators are dead. The stairwell doors are electronically locked. We're in a lockdown. He runs a hand through his hair, a rare sign of agitation. He's cut us off, and he's waiting. The raw fear I feel must be evident on my face because his expression softens. He steps closer, and in the intermittent flashes of lightning, I can see the concern in his eyes. "I will not let him get to you, Jenna," he says, his voice a low, fierce promise. "Or to the boy. I swear it." He tells me to stay in Leo's room, to lock the door. But I can't. I can't just hide while he faces this alone. This is my son's life on the line, too. "No," I say, my voice surprisingly firm. "I'm a nurse. If you get hurt, I can help." He looks at me for a long moment, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. He expects me to be terrified, to cower. He doesn't expect me to stand my ground. He gives a slow, reluctant nod. We wait in the darkness, the silence punctuated only by the roaring wind and the drumming of the rain. It's an agonizing, nerve-shredding vigil. Antonio positions himself near the private elevator, the most likely point of entry. I stay back, my medical kit on the kitchen island, my hands clenched into fists. The minutes stretch into an hour, then two. The storm begins to subside, the thunder receding into a distant grumble. The attack doesn't come. It was a feint, a psychological game. Ricardo wanted us to know he could reach us, to feel the terror of being trapped and helpless. As the first gray light of dawn begins to filter through the windows, Antonio finally lowers his weapon. The tension in his body recedes, but it's replaced by a cold, simmering fury. He turns to me, his face etched with exhaustion and something else. Something raw and unguarded. The mask is gone. In its place is a profound, soul-deep weariness. "He played with us," I say softly. "He won't get a second chance," Antonio says, his voice lethally quiet. He walks over to the wet bar and pours himself a stiff drink, downing it in one go. He leans against the counter, the empty glass in his hand, and for the first time, he looks broken. "Why is he doing this?" I ask, my voice barely a whisper. "This Ricardo, I thought he was your family." Antonio lets out a harsh, bitter laugh. "Family. In my world, family is just a prettier word for your closest enemy." He looks at me, his eyes dark with old pain. And then, the story comes pouring out of him, a torrent of grief and betrayal held back for too long. He tells me about his father, the old Don, who built the family empire. He tells me about his older brother, Marco's father, who was supposed to inherit everything but was killed in a car bomb meant for their father. And he tells me about Ricardo, his cousin, who grew up in his shadow, consumed by jealousy and resentment. But then the story turns darker, more personal. "I had a wife," he says, his voice so low I can barely hear him. "Her name was Sophia. We had a daughter, a little girl named Isabella." My breath catches. Isabella, the same name as the woman who was here. "My daughter was named after her godmother," he clarifies, a muscle twitching in his jaw. "Isabella and Sophia were best friends, inseparable." He looks away, out at the now calm city. 5 years ago, there was a hit. A rival family. They came to the house. I wasn't there. Sophia and my little girl, they were. He swallows hard, the sound raw in the quiet room. They died. And Ricardo, he was supposed to be in charge of my security that day. He pulled the guards from the house for a more pressing matter. He left them unprotected. He claimed it was a mistake, a tragic miscalculation. But I know. I've always known. He let it happen. He wanted me broken. He wanted me to suffer the way he felt he had suffered in my shadow. The confession hangs in the air between us, a devastating weight. This isn't just a power struggle. It's a vendetta, fueled by years of poison and grief. The cold, ruthless Mafia boss, the untouchable Antonio Belucci, is a man hollowed out by loss. His control, his possessiveness, his obsession with security, it all clicks into place. He's not just protecting me from Ricardo. He's trying to prevent history from repeating itself. He's trying to save me in a way he couldn't save his own family. I see him now, not as my captor, but as a fellow survivor, a man drowning in a pain so profound it has reshaped his entire being. My fear of him begins to dissolve, replaced by a wave of unexpected, overwhelming empathy. Without thinking, I walk over to him. I reach out and gently take the empty glass from his hand, my fingers brushing against his. The contact sends a jolt through both of us. I set the glass on the counter. "I'm so sorry, Antonio," I whisper. He looks down at me, his dark eyes shimmering with an unshed emotion I can't quite name. He seems surprised by my touch, by my sympathy. He's a man who is used to fear and obedience, not kindness. The space between us feels charged, electric. The storm outside has passed, but a new one is building right here, in the heart of his gilded cage. He lifts a hand, his fingers hesitating for a moment before they gently touch my cheek. His thumb brushes away a tear I didn't even realize had fallen. His touch is not possessive, not controlling. It's tentative, questioning, achingly gentle. It's the touch of a man starved for human connection. And in that moment, something shifts irrevocably between us. The lines of captor and captive, of protector and protected, blur into something far more complex, far more dangerous. He leans in slowly, his eyes never leaving mine, giving me every chance to pull away. But I don't. I can't. I am drawn into the orbit of his pain, his strength, his vulnerability. I stand on my toes, meeting him halfway. His lips meet mine. The kiss is not what I expected. It's not rough or demanding. It's soft, searching, filled with a desperate, questioning tenderness. It's a kiss that speaks of shared loss and a tentative, fragile hope. It's the taste of whiskey and grief and the promise of a dawn after a long, terrifying night. When we break apart, we're both breathless. The power is still out. We are still trapped. The danger is still very real. But everything has changed. The emotional walls I had so carefully constructed have been shattered, and I'm left standing in the ruins, looking at a man I should despise, a man I should fear, and feeling something terrifyingly close to connection. He is no longer just the monster who invaded my life. He's Antonio. And I am in more danger now than I have ever been. The kiss lingers in the air between us, a silent, shimmering thing. The raw vulnerability of the moment is more intimidating than any of his previous displays of power. We stand there in the gray dawn, the dead quiet of the powerless penthouse amplifying the sound of our breathing. He doesn't let go of me, his hand still cupping my cheek, his thumb stroking my skin as if to reassure himself that I'm real. "Jenna," he says, my name a rough whisper. It's not a command or a statement anymore. It's a question, a plea. I don't know how to respond. My mind is a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Empathy for the grieving man he is, fear of the dangerous world he inhabits, and a burgeoning, undeniable attraction to the complex person who stands before me. This is madness. I'm a nurse, a mother. My life is about packed lunches and scraped knees, not power outages caused by mob wars and kisses that taste of tragedy. The power flickers back on with a low hum, the lights in the kitchen buzzing to life, flooding the room with a harsh, artificial glare. The spell is broken. We pull apart, the sudden brightness making us feel exposed. Antonio's mask of cool control slips back into place, but I can see the cracks. I know what lies beneath it now. Life in the penthouse finds a new, stranger rhythm after that night. The tension is different. It's no longer the friction of captor and captive, but the thrumming electric hum of unspoken attraction and unresolved emotion. We avoid talking about the kiss, but it's a constant presence, a ghost that haunts the space between us. I catch him watching me with a new intensity, a flicker of longing in his gaze that wasn't there before, and I find my own eyes drawn to him, to the way his shirt stretches across his broad shoulders, the way he smiles, a rare and beautiful thing, when Leo tells him a silly joke. He begins to open up to me in small, carefully chosen fragments. He talks about his childhood, about the immense pressure of being a Belucci, the heir apparent after his brother's death. He never speaks of his wife and daughter again, but their memory is a constant, silent presence, the source of the deep well of sadness I can now see in his eyes. He takes an active interest in Leo's education, reviewing the homeschool materials I've been using. One afternoon, I find him at the dining table with Leo, patiently explaining a difficult math problem, his deep voice a calm, steady murmur. Leo, who usually struggles with numbers, is rapt, hanging on his every word. The sight sends a complicated ache through my chest. He's stepping into a role that has been vacant for so long, a father figure for my son. It's something I never thought I'd want, especially not from a man like him. My own world feels increasingly distant. I talk to my charge nurse on the burner phone, spinning a vague but convincing story about a sick relative out of state. She's sympathetic, telling me to take all the time I need. It's a lie, of course, one of the many lies that now constitute my reality. I feel a pang of loss for my old life, for the simple satisfaction of a hard day's work, for the camaraderie of my colleagues. That Jenna Carter feels like a different person, someone naive and blissfully unaware of the shadows that run parallel to her world. The threat of Ricardo looms over us, a promise of violence waiting to be fulfilled. Antonio has men stationed in the lobby and on our floor, a visible and constant reminder of our gilded imprisonment. He rarely leaves, conducting his business from his upstairs office. The few times he does go out, the penthouse feels unnervingly empty, and I find myself waiting for the sound of the elevator, a knot of anxiety tightening in my stomach until he returns. I hate that I'm relieved to see him. I hate that his presence has started to feel synonymous with safety. One afternoon, I'm putting away some of Leo's drawings in a spare room that Antonio has designated as a playroom. It's mostly empty, save for a few boxes. Curiosity gets the better of me. I open one. It's filled with old photo albums. I know I shouldn't look, that this is a violation of his privacy, but I can't stop myself. The first album is filled with pictures of a younger Antonio, smiling, carefree. He's with a beautiful woman with warm, laughing eyes, Sophia, and a little girl with Antonio's dark hair and Sophia's smile, Isabella. My heart clenches. They look so happy, so normal. A family on vacation at the beach, celebrating a birthday with a lopsided cake, the little girl asleep on Antonio's chest. It's a life stolen from him, a ghost of a future that never was. But as I flip through another album, I find something that makes my blood run cold. It's a more recent collection of photos, candid shots, surveillance pictures. There are photos of Ricardo, of other men I don't recognize. And then I see a picture of a man I do recognize. My late husband, Mark. He's standing outside a bar, looking nervous, handing a thick envelope to one of Antonio's known associates. The date stamp in the corner is from 2 years ago, just a few months before the car accident that killed him. I feel dizzy, the room tilting around me. I flip a few more pages, and there are more pictures. Financial records. A ledger detailing a series of loans. My husband's name is listed next to a staggering sum of money. A gambling debt. A debt to the Belucci family. The truth hits me with the force of a physical blow. Antonio didn't just stumble upon my apartment by chance. It wasn't a coincidence. He knew who I was. He knew where I lived. My husband owed him money. The nascent trust, the fragile connection I thought we were building, shatters into a million pieces. The kiss, the shared vulnerability, the kindness towards Leo. Was it all a lie? A calculated manipulation? Am I not just a witness he's protecting, but a pawn in a much larger game? An asset to be managed until my husband's debt is settled? I feel a cold, sickening rage build inside me. I've been a fool. I let his tragic story cloud my judgment, let my loneliness and fear make me susceptible to his carefully constructed persona. He's not a grieving man seeking connection. He's a predator who has been playing with his prey. I slam the album shut, my hands shaking. I march out of the room, the album clutched in my hand like a weapon, and storm up the spiral staircase to his office. I don't knock. I throw the door open. He's on the phone, but he looks up, his eyes widening in surprise at my intrusion. He quickly ends the call. "Jenna, what's wrong?" "Don't you Jenna me!" I seethe, my voice trembling with fury. I throw the photo album onto his massive desk. It lands with a heavy thud, falling open to the picture of my husband. "You lied to me." He looks down at the photo, and his face becomes an impassive mask. He doesn't deny it. "You knew," I say, my voice breaking. "You knew who I was the whole time. This wasn't some random act of fate. You came to my apartment for a reason. What was it, Antonio? Were you coming to collect? To threaten me and my son over Mark's gambling debts?" "It wasn't like that," he says, his voice low and steady. "Don't lie to me," I shout, my control finally snapping. "Not anymore. I deserve the truth. What did you want from me?" He stands up and walks around the desk, stopping a few feet from me. He looks tired, older than he did just moments before. "Yes, I knew who you were," he admits, his voice heavy with resignation. "Mark owed my family a significant amount of money. After he died, the debt was unresolved. I was looking into it. Standard procedure." "Standard procedure?" I echo in disbelief. "Terrorizing a grieving widow and her child is standard procedure for you?" "I was not going to terrorize you," he says, a flash of anger in his own eyes. "I don't collect from women and children, Jenna. I was investigating the circumstances. Mark's debt was unusually large, accrued very quickly. It smelled like he was being set up. I believe Ricardo was using him, leveraging his debt to launder money, to create a slush fund for his own operations." He takes a breath, his gaze unwavering. "The night I was shot, I had just gotten confirmation of Ricardo's involvement. He knew I was onto him. He set me up. I was blocks from your apartment. It was the only place I could think to go that wasn't compromised, where he wouldn't expect to find me. It was a desperate move, not a calculated one." I stare at him, my mind reeling. His explanation is plausible. It fits with everything he's told me about Ricardo. But I've been so thoroughly deceived that I can't bring myself to believe him. The foundation of our entire relationship, as fraught as it was built on the premise of a chance encounter. To learn it was all predicated on a dirty secret, a debt my husband kept from me. Feels like a profound betrayal. "So everything," I say, my voice thick with unshed tears. "The way you've been with Leo, the things you told me, was any of it real? Or was it all just a way to keep me compliant, to manage the asset? The hurt that flashes across his face looks genuine. It's so raw, so unguarded, that it momentarily silences me. What happened between us? What I told you. That has nothing to do with this, he says, his voice hoarse with emotion. That night in the storm, that was real. Watching you with your son, seeing how fiercely you love him. That is real. You're not an asset, Jenna. You were never an asset. He takes a step closer, his hands held up in a gesture of peace. I should have told you. I know that. I was waiting for the right time, a time when I could explain it without you thinking the worst. I was a coward. I was afraid that if you knew, you would look at me with the same hatred you're looking at me with right now, and I couldn't bear that. His confession, the raw honesty in his voice, chips away at my anger, leaving me confused and heartbroken. I want to believe him. God, I want to believe him. But he has built his entire life on a foundation of secrets and control. How can I ever trust a single word he says? I can't do this. I whisper, backing away from him. I can't live like this, in a cage built on lies. I turn and flee, running from his office, from his words, from the devastating conflict in my own heart. I lock myself in my bedroom the same way I did when I was a frightened captive. But this time, I'm not locking him out. I'm locking myself in, trying to piece together the shattered fragments of my own reality. The days that follow are cold and silent. I avoid Antonio, speaking to him only when necessary, for Leo's sake. The warmth that had begun to grow between us is gone, replaced by a chasm of distrust. He doesn't push. He gives me space, his eyes filled with a quiet, regretful sorrow whenever he looks at me. The penthouse, once a symbol of his power, now feels like a prison of my own making. I spend my time with Leo, pouring all my energy into being his mother, his teacher, his playmate. It's the only role that still makes sense, the only part of my identity that hasn't been tainted by Antonio's world. But even that is a lie. Leo has grown fond of Antonio. He asks why Antonio doesn't eat with us anymore, why he always looks so sad. I don't know how to explain it to him. How do you explain to a child that the man who protects them is also the man who has destroyed their world? One evening, Marco comes to the door. He needs to speak with Antonio urgently. I let him in and retreat to the kitchen, but I can hear their hushed, tense voices. He's getting sloppy, boss, Marco says. Ricardo, he's making moves in the open. He tried to grab one of our accountants off the street today. Broad daylight. He's getting desperate. He knows his time is running out, Antonio replies, his voice a low growl. He's going to make a final play. Something big. Something loud. What's the target? There's a pause. A heavy, dreadful silence. And then Antonio says the words that make my heart stop. Jenna and the boy. It's the only move he has left that will truly hurt me. He'll try to take them. I lean against the counter, my legs suddenly weak. It's not a game anymore. It's not about my feelings of betrayal or my conflicted heart. This is about my son's life. Ricardo isn't just a rival. He's a direct, physical threat to my child. Later that night, after Leo is asleep, Antonio finds me in the living room, staring out at the city lights, my mind racing. I heard you talking to Marco, I say, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. He's coming for us, isn't he? I won't let him get near you, Antonio says, his voice a fierce, protective vow. Your promises don't mean very much to me right now, I retort, the bitterness creeping back into my voice. He flinches, but he doesn't back down. He walks over to stand beside me at the window. Jenna, I know I broke your trust. I don't expect you to forgive me, but you have to believe me on this. I will protect you and Leo with my life. Everything I have, every man at my disposal, will be dedicated to keeping you safe. I turn to face him, my eyes searching his. Why? Because I'm a witness? Because of Mark's debt? Or is there another reason you're not telling me? He reaches out, his hand hovering in the air for a moment before he lets it fall to his side. Because when Ricardo looks at you, he sees a weakness to exploit. A pawn. But when I look at you, I see my future. The raw, unvarnished honesty of his words steals the air from my lungs. It's the one thing I never expected him to say. It's a confession more intimate, more terrifying than the story of his past. You and Leo, he continues, his voice thick with an emotion he can no longer hide. You walked into my life when it was nothing but darkness and revenge. You brought light into this mausoleum. You made it a home. I know I have no right to ask anything of you, but I'm asking you to trust me now, not as a captor, but as the man who will stand between you and the entire world if he has to. A plan is made. A desperate, dangerous plan. We can't stay in the penthouse. It's a known location, a target. We have to move, to disappear until Antonio's men can corner Ricardo. The plan is to transport us to a secure house in the countryside, a place off the grid, fortified and unknown to his enemies. The transfer is set for the following night. The hours leading up to it are the most tense I have ever experienced. Every sound, every shadow seems menacing. I pack a small bag for myself and Leo, my movements numb and automatic. I am placing my son's life, and my own, in the hands of a man I'm not sure I can trust, a man who is the very reason we are in danger. But I have no other choice. To defy him is to face Ricardo alone, and that is a death sentence. As dusk falls, Marco arrives with 2 other men, all of them armed, their faces grim. The plan is to take the service elevator to the garage, where an armored car is waiting. Stay close to me, Antonio says, his hand resting on the small of my back, a gesture that is both protective and proprietary. I pick up a sleeping Leo from his bed, wrapping him in a blanket. His small, warm body is a fragile weight in my arms. I would do anything to protect him. Even trust Antonio Belucci. We move through the apartment, a silent, heavily armed procession. As we reach the private elevator, Marco's phone buzzes. He listens for a moment, his face paling. Boss, it's a trap, he says, his voice urgent. Ricardo's men are in the garage. They've blocked the exits. We're cornered. Ricardo didn't just know where we were. He knew where we were going. He anticipated our every move. There's a mole, a traitor within Antonio's own inner circle. Antonio's face becomes a mask of cold fury. The stairwell, he commands. We race towards the emergency stairs, but as we reach the door, we hear the sound of heavy footsteps pounding up from below. They're coming from both directions, trapping us on this floor. We retreat back into the penthouse, the heavy door slamming shut behind us. Antonio engages the emergency locks, a series of thick steel bolts sliding into place. We are locked in, but they are locked out, for now. A loud bang echoes from the hallway, followed by the sound of splintering wood. They're trying to break down the main door. Get Leo into the panic room, Antonio orders Marco. I follow Marco down a hallway to a wall of bookcases. He pulls a specific book, and a section of the wall slides open, revealing a small, steel-lined room. It's claustrophobic, but it's safe. Go, Antonio says to me. I look at him, at the gun in his hand, at the grim determination on his face. He's preparing to make a stand, to fight for our lives. I'm not leaving you, I say, my voice clear and steady. The time for fear and indecision is over. This is happening right now, and our survival depends on us working together. He looks at me, a flicker of surprise and something else, admiration, in his eyes. He doesn't have time to argue. The pounding on the door is getting louder, more frantic. Marco, stay with them, Antonio commands, pushing me gently towards the panic room. Barricade the hallway. He looks at me, his eyes burning with a fierce intensity. No matter what you hear, you do not open this door. I clutch Leo tighter, my heart hammering against my ribs. I watch as Marco and the other man start pulling heavy furniture, creating a makeshift barricade. Then, I step inside the small, dark room. The steel door slides shut with a deafening clang, sealing us in. The silence inside is absolute. I can't hear the pounding anymore, can't hear the shouting. There is only the sound of my own ragged breathing and the soft, steady rhythm of my son's heart beating against mine. I am safe. But Antonio is out there, facing an unknown number of armed men, fighting a battle that started long before I ever entered his life. And all I can do is wait in the dark, praying that the man who turned my world upside down will be the one to save it. Time ceases to exist in the windowless steel box. Seconds stretch into agonizing minutes, minutes into an eternity. I sit on the cold floor, holding Leo, who miraculously sleeps through the muffled chaos that I can now faintly perceive through the thick door. It's not just pounding anymore. It's the sharp, percussive crack of gunfire. My stomach twists into a tight, nauseous knot. Each shot is a question mark, a potential end to a life. His life. Marco is with me, his face pale, a gun held tightly in his hands. He's a soldier waiting for orders, his loyalty to the man on the other side of the door absolute. He catches me watching him. "He'll be okay," Marco says, his voice a low rasp. It's meant to be reassuring, but it sounds more like a prayer. The boss, he's been in worse scrapes than this. I want to believe him. I cling to the image of Antonio's face just before the door closed. The fierce determination, the promise in his eyes. He wasn't just fighting for his territory or his name. He was fighting for us. The realization settles deep in my bones, a certainty that transcends all the lies and betrayals. He was fighting for his future. The sounds of the battle change. The gunfire becomes more sporadic, then stops altogether. It's replaced by a terrifying, profound silence. Is it over? Who won? The not knowing is a unique form of torture. I strain my ears, desperate for any sign of life. Nothing. Marco is on his feet, his ear pressed against the steel door. He's holding his breath, listening. I watch his face, trying to read his expression. Then, we hear it. A soft, metallic click. The lock on the panic room door is disengaging. Marco raises his weapon, his body tensing, positioning himself between me and the door. My heart hammers against my ribs so hard I feel it might break through. Is it Antonio? Or is it Ricardo, coming to finish the job? The heavy door slides open with a low groan. Antonio is standing there, framed in the doorway. He's alive. Relief washes over me so powerfully my knees feel weak. He's bruised, his shirt is torn, and there's a fresh cut bleeding on his forehead, but he's standing. Behind him, the penthouse is a scene of utter devastation. Furniture is overturned, bullet holes pepper the walls, and the air is thick with the acrid smell of gunpowder. But he is alive. His eyes find mine, and the intensity in them makes my breath catch. He walks into the panic room, his gaze never leaving my face. He doesn't say a word. He just comes to me, cups my face in his hands, and kisses me. This kiss is nothing like the first. It's not tentative or questioning. It's desperate, hungry, a raw affirmation of life in the face of death. It's the kiss of a man who has walked through hell and found something worth coming back for. I kiss him back with equal fervor, my hands tangling in his hair, pouring all my fear, my relief, my complicated, undeniable feelings for him into the embrace. When we finally break apart, he rests his forehead against mine, his breathing heavy. "It's over," he whispers. "Ricardo is gone. It's over." The immediate aftermath is a blur. Antonio's men, the loyal ones, secure the building. The police are never called. The mess is cleaned up with the same silent, terrifying efficiency as before. The dead are removed, the damage repaired. Within hours, the penthouse is restored to its pristine, sterile state. The only evidence of the battle, the lingering scent of bleach and the haunted look in our eyes. We learned that the traitor was one of Antonio's own cousins, a man I'd never met who had been feeding Ricardo information for months. He was among the dead in the hallway. The betrayal cuts deep, but Antonio's expression is one of grim finality. He has excised the poison from his family, a brutal but necessary surgery. In the days that follow, the atmosphere in the penthouse is quiet, somber. The threat is gone, but the ghost of it remains. We are no longer prisoners, but we don't know how to be free. The cage door is open, but we've grown accustomed to the cage. One evening, about a week after the attack, Antonio comes to me. He's holding a thick manila envelope. "What's this?" I ask. "It's a trust fund for Leo," he says, placing it on the table. "It's enough for him to go to any school, any university he wants, to do anything he wants with his life." He slides another envelope across the table. "And this is for you. A new identity, a passport, a driver's license, a bank account with enough money for you to go anywhere in the world, to start over, to be safe. No one will ever find you." I stare at the envelopes, at the future he's offering me, a clean slate, an escape. It's everything I thought I wanted. The freedom to take my son and run, to go back to a normal life, far away from the violence and shadows of his world. "You can walk away, Jenna," he says, his voice quiet, devoid of its usual command. "You and Leo will be safe. I've neutralized every threat. You don't owe me anything. Mark's debt is erased. Consider this, a thank you, for saving my life, for everything." He's giving me a choice, a real choice, with no strings attached. He's letting me go. And the thought of it, the thought of walking out that door and never seeing him again, creates a hollow, aching void in my chest. I look at him, truly look at him. I see the man who charmed my son, the man who patiently explained math problems, the man who confessed his deepest grief in a storm, the man who was willing to die to protect us. He's a dangerous man, a killer, a mob boss, but he's also just Antonio. "Is this what you want?" I ask, my voice barely a whisper. "For us to leave?" His carefully constructed mask of neutrality cracks. The pain in his eyes is raw, undisguised. "What I want," he says, his voice thick with emotion, "is for you to be safe and happy. If that means leaving, then yes." I think about the life he's offering me. A quiet, safe life in some anonymous town. A life without fear, without looking over my shoulder. A life without him. And I realize, with a startling, terrifying clarity, that the safety of that life would be its own kind of prison. A life of wondering, of regretting. A life without the fierce, complicated, all-consuming connection I've found with him. I push the envelopes back across the table towards him. "No," I say, my voice clear and strong. He looks at me, his expression a mixture of confusion and dawning hope. "No? I don't want a new identity. I don't want to run," I say. I walk around the table until I'm standing in front of him. I take his hands in mine. They're strong, calloused, capable of both violence and incredible tenderness. "My old life is gone, Antonio. It disappeared the night you bled on my doorstep. I've spent all this time mourning it, trying to get it back. But it's not what I want anymore." "What do you want, Jenna?" he asks, his voice hoarse. "I want this," I say, squeezing his hands. "I want the man who builds Lego castles with my son. I want the man who holds me after a nightmare. I know what your world is. I know it's dangerous and violent, but my world was lonely. You brought chaos and fear into my life, it's true. But you also brought passion and protection and a love I never thought I'd feel again. Tears are streaming down my face, but they are not tears of sadness or fear. They are tears of release, of choice. I'm not your captive anymore, Antonio, I say. I'm not a witness or a debt to be managed. I'm choosing to be here. I'm choosing you, if you'll have me. A slow, brilliant smile spreads across his face, a smile of such profound relief and joy that it transforms him. It's the smile I saw in the old photographs, the smile of the man he was before grief hollowed him out. the smile of the man he could be again. He pulls me into his arms, burying his face in my hair. "If I'll have you," he murmurs against my skin. "Jenna, you are the only thing I have wanted since the moment your son told me his mom could fix me. You did more than stitch a wound. You stitched my life back together." We stand there for a long time, holding each other, two survivors from different worlds who found an unlikely sanctuary together. The original contract, the debt, the circumstance that brought us together is rendered void. This is a new pact, a new beginning, forged not of necessity, but of choice. The next morning, I wake up in his bed, in his arms. The sun is streaming through the massive windows, bathing the room in a warm, golden light. For the first time since I arrived, the penthouse doesn't feel like a cage. It feels like home. Leo comes padding into the room, crawling into the bed between us. He snuggles into Antonio's side, and Antonio's arm wraps around him instinctively, protectively. Looking at them, my two boys, my strange, dangerous, beautiful family, I know I've made the right choice. Our future will not be simple. It will be fraught with danger and complicated by the legacy of his name. But it will be our future, one we build together. We have moved from a relationship of necessity to one of love, from a gilded cage to a shared fortress. And for the first time in a very long time, as I watch the sunrise over the city with the man I love and the son I adore, I feel utterly, completely free.